talking about, do you qualify for the head of household filing status? And the reason why we're talking about this is because it's a lot of misinformation out there in reference whether somebody qualified for head of household or not. A lot of people just assume that they should have the head of household filing status, not really knowing what the qualifications for the head of household filing status is. So let's talk about it. So, number one, if you do not have a qualifying child or a qualifying dependent, then you would not qualify for head of household. And I know that in the world, when we qualify for head, we the head of our household if we're paying our bills to our home, um, or we have our own place, then we consider head of household. But in the tax world, you're not considered head of household unless you have a qualifying child or a qualifying dependent. If you don't have one, then you are automatically single. Now, just because you have a qualifying child and a qualifying dependent does not automatically, in the tax world, qualifies you for the head of household filing status. So, the qualifications for a head of household is one, at the end of the year, you have to be considered unmarried. That means that you're either divorced or you're living in a separate household from your spouse. You separate from your spouse and you're living in a separate household for the last 6 months of the year. So, whether you are considered unmarried is determined by the last day of the year. What was your situation? So that's one of the qualifications. Another qualification is that you provided over 50% of the cost to keep up your home. Now, it's different things that you have to pay for in reference to qualifying for paying over 50% of your household. And we'll go over those in a minute. And then, the dependent, unless it's your parent, this the only people that doesn't matter. So with your dependents have to live with you over 6 months out of the year. So I know a lot of y'all be like, oh, well, I had them 6 months, they had them 6 months. That's not going to get it. They have to live with you over 6 months out of the year. So those are the criteria for filing head of household. And so a lot of people might say, well, I pay all my bills, and so I got a dependent, and I qualify for the head of household filing status. But you have to do the calculations because it's a couple of things that if you're receiving financial assistance for and they are paying a portion of those things, then you might not qualify for head of household. Now, you might qualify for, and you have dependents, you might qualify for like the earned income tax credit, the child tax credit, because they have different criteria, but you might just not qualify for the head of household filing status. So, to provide over 50% of the cost of your home, these are the things that are considered in that calculation. So, if you pay rent or if you have a mortgage, and if you have a mortgage, your property tax and your insurance. Now, if you would have a rental property or you renting somewhere, that you might pay renter's insurance. So, and they say insurance, groceries, repairs to your home, utility bills. Those are the things that are considered the keeping up your home, providing over 50% of the cost of keeping up your home. So to determine whether or not you meet that criteria, you have to add up all those things. How much do you spend on all of those things? And then you have to add up what portion of that do you pay. And if that portion that you pay is over 50% of that total number, then you can check off I keep up over 50% of the cost of my home. Now, with some of you all, you might get some type of assistance. So you might get rental assistance, which you can. It's different types like HAP. I don't know all of them for real, but you got HAP and different other rental assistance. You might get food stamps, which you might get a whopping amount of food stamps. That might take up all paying for all your groceries, and you might not pay nothing out of pocket for your groceries. Um, and if you have those types of things, then and they cover over 50%, or they keep you from covering over 50%, then you don't qualify for head of household. So a lot of people I see talking about, well, if you make 21,000, then you don't qualify for head of household. That's not true. In order for you to qualify for head of household, you have to meet all three of the criteria, and you have to make sure, you know, that you are providing cost to keep up your home for sure. Now, if your rent is paid up, because that's the biggest cost. If your rent is paid, the majority of your rent is paid for the month. 9 times out of 10 from somebody else, 9 times out of 10 you don't qualify for the head of household filing status. Now you might be on food stamps, but you got to pay your whole rent, right? Then depends on what the other costs of your utilities and insurance and those types of things, then you might qualify for head of household. So it's all about like people asking the right questions, and also you knowing like what you do, how long your dependent live with you, you know, are you married? Because a lot of married people think that they can file head of household or single, when the filing status for married people are married filing joint, married filing separate. Now you can be considered unmarried if you and your spouse do not live in this don't live in the same home the last 6 months out of the year, and then you're providing the cost keep of your own home, and you have a qualified dependent, then you might can file head of household. But it's a lot of different rules and regulations in reference to who qualify for head of household and who don't. And if you don't qualify for head of household, it don't necessarily mean that you don't qualify for the other credits. It just means that you do not qualify for the head of household filing status. And with a lot of tax pros, you might be getting pushback on whether or not they're gonna file you head of household, or if you end up filing single with dependents. And the reason for that, y'all see I'm losing my voice. The reason for that is because as tax pros, one of the things that the IRS has changed over the years is, one, if we're filing too many clients a certain way, meaning we got too many clients to file in head of household that looks like they might not qualify for it, or too many clients to get the earned income tax credit and they look like they don't qualify for it, then that IRS will audit us, right? And then we can get fined. And I think a fine for filing a client head of household and they don't qualify for it is like $635. Nobody's trying to get a $635 fine for filing clients head of household and they don't really qualify for it. So if you're getting pushback from tax pros in reference to that, that's the reason why. But if you qualify for it, because you can have someone who makes $15,000 for the year, 15,000 for the year, and then they might get some type of income outside of their wages that that's not taxable, that ultimately qualifies them for head of household. But the thing about it is the IRS look at it as, if you make a certain dollar amount, especially under 20 some thousand, most rents is 1,000 plus. So how are you living? How are you paying for the rest of your bills? That means somebody else could possibly live in the household with you that's paying some of those bills, which might disqualify you for head of household. You might have another income that you're not reporting, that you're trying to hide, you could be getting some type of assistance in their minds, which is kind of true, right? In their minds, they're like, okay, there's no way you're making 15,000 a year, paying $1,000 a month in rent, and um, you know, you qualify. So I think my thing's about to stop. My laptop not plugged, so I gotta go. But before they kick me off. So for anything, for you who qualify for head of household, make sure that you qualify for it before you file your taxes, because the IRS is start auditing people for falsely filing the head of household status. So I got to go because my battery dead and I ain't got time to get up and plug it in. But for more tax tips, make sure y'all following our page. If you're looking for a tax pro to do your taxes for this tax season, check us out at Expert Tax Service. If you live in another city, you can go to www.experttaxservice.com. Make sure you're filing the right filing status. Make sure you are checking off all the criteria in order to file a filing status. Now, I got to go, y'all. Bye.